Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. What I've been thinking about too in these few days as I'm kind of getting back in the swing of things is something that I do every January. And it doesn't have to be January that we think about some big change that we're going to do in our lives. And in fact, it doesn't even have to be some kind of big change, but it just seems like a kind of a good milestone for us to think about, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to change? And I was going to say, what do we want to do for the rest of the year? But the year is kind of these imaginary milestones that human beings have created, our months. Why do things start and end in the winter time if you're in the northern hemisphere, or the summertime if you're in the southern hemisphere? No real rhyme or reason, but this rhythm does, it's been here for a while, and it does kind of help us get into a rhythm. And by the way, that is one of the funny things about, I've been here in Singapore for 3 years now. I moved here from Hong Kong, and the weather being pretty similar all the time does change the way that I feel the passage of time. And so the months are good milestones for me to remember, hey, time is passing. And instead of kind of getting caught up in the rut of what could be potentially the same old thing happening over and over again, that's something that I really have made it, part of my life, and part of me wanting to, as I age, as I move through my life, is to make continuous improvement so that the version of me that's here at the end of my life is better than the one at the beginning of my life. And so it's helpful to look every January and to kind of think, well, is there something that I can focus on this year? Is there some, it's not a resolution, not a goal. Is there something that I can look at to just maybe do a little bit differently, to continue and to serve that wanting to be better than I was yesterday and than I was last year? And so that's kind of the exploration that I try to do every year. So I'm just going to look at the chat and see what everybody's up to. Sybil says, all my family have left my place and now I'm tidying up. It's been wonderful, and now I'm glad to relax. Yeah, me too, man. I mean, not that... It's funny how vacation can feel, it's like there's just always something going on. There's something to continuously do. And now that I'm back at home, I feel like I can finally take a breath and rest and relax and, let the kids go to school and to get back to focusing on the projects that I've been wanting to work on. So, maybe that's something you can think about too as you explore this new year. Happy New Year, Caesar. Hi, Jean. Great to see you. And Happy New Year from Ireland, says Callie. It's great to have you here today. And so that's really today's topic. It's just about, as we explore, as we think about what we're going to do this year, well, the very first step, and I guess I've talked about this in acceptance before, and the 9 attitudes, I'll just kind of pop up the 9 attitudes of mindfulness. So one of them is acceptance, and acceptance is about knowing where you are. That if you start moving forwards or moving in any direction, who knows what's forwards mean in that context. If we start moving without knowing where we are, we don't know if we're moving closer to our destination or farther away, or maybe we're moving in a sideways direction. Who knows? So today's topic is about setting your compass. So taking a look at where you are and looking towards the direction that you want to be in and just setting that direction, not even taking the first step. We'll talk about that a little bit more next time. But today is really more about looking at that direction, trying to find the direction that you want to go for 2026. So the new year can feel exciting. It can feel somewhat stressful too, because that maybe we do put some pressure on ourselves to be different, or to start changing something. And so that can add some stress, and it can be something that's not even a consciously happening. It can be kind of in the background, just noticing, feeling the momentum of January and kind of thinking, hey, there's something has to be done. So, you don't have to have a perfect plan ready. And this isn't about having that perfect plan and starting to execute it. It's really taking a pause to see what is the direction that I want to go, and can I know where I am, know which is the right direction before I start that movement. Because when we skip orientation, often we're chasing our mood, we're chasing our guilt, we're chasing other people's expectations, and we can feel overwhelmed. And it can be that there are just too many things going on, and that can be what starts to cause that overwhelm as well. So we don't need to see the full map. We don't need to know exactly step by step how we're going to execute. We just need to start looking as to what that direction might be. So the first step is acceptance, right? Acceptance doesn't mean that we have to like where we are. We don't have to like how things are, but it does mean seeing things truly and accepting this is where I am right now. Without, I always think of the opposite of acceptance is denial. So acceptance says this is where I am right now, and looks around, sees what are the indicators to show me that I'm here, so that I can accurately say where I am. So if I don't start from where I am, how can I possibly aim accurately as where I want to be? So if the "you are here" dot on the map is wrong, then every direction you want to go to get to your destination is going to be wrong. So we can we can have a few little checks to see where we are. So one of these, and Callie says, acceptance of reality is really better than denial. But Callie, what can be really hard about acceptance is, it's that denial can feel a lot more comfortable. And it can be easier to sit around in denial and pretending everything's okay. And so it does take courage to accept and to see the situation how it is, without the sugar coating that we may want to give ourselves. So what are some ways that we can check in as to where we are? So one, what does this season, what does this time feel like in my body? Can I see anything different about the way my body is handling right now? What is my energy like? Do I feel more depleted? Do I feel less steady? Do I feel restless? What is asking for care? Is it sleep? Is it health? Is it relationships? Is it work? Is it meaning? What is it that I'm really looking for right now? And maybe what is that one thing that I'm pretending is not true? So kind of looking at these, as we examine what does now feel like in my body. And then one of the things that we can often look at is, instead of focusing on goals and making goals, goals can feel sometimes in the opposite spirit of non-striving. So instead of goals, especially as we set the compass, what are values that are important to me? So goals look at the outcome. Values look at the direction, right? So you can live your value today even before anything is achieved. So some ways we can look at our values, and I'm just going to write these in the chat here because I think these are good. When do I feel like myself? Or when do I feel most like myself? Maybe that's even better. When do I feel most like myself? What do I want more in my life? Not as a fantasy, but as a practice. And if I look back in a year, what would make me feel proud in a quiet way? So I think these are all good ways to kind of evaluate what our values are. And kind of distinguish what feels true. And so another piece that we may have is this idea of shoulding, right? What should I be doing? Should sounds tight. It sounds urgent. It sounds comparative. Truth feels steady, feels honest, feels relieving, even if it could be challenging. So instead of worrying about what I should be doing, what is true to me and what is true to my values. I think this can be more true to ourselves and can really help us as we're trying to find out what is going to be the right direction for this year. Cece says, is this right? Goal is a result, value is direction. So some of the common directions that people may choose, caring for our bodies, caring for our nervous systems, deepening relationships and repairing, finding meaning and purpose. So creativity, service, learning, what is going to be helpful for you? And I can tell you that my, just as I look through these, meaning and purpose is really what that focus is showing up for me this year. When it comes to learning, it's like deeper learning so that I can be, not only a better teacher, but a better version of myself. And I'm already kind of setting up, learnings. And so, do any of these sound, here, and I'm just going to write these as well. So do any of these sound like they're true for you? So caring for the body and nervous system. Deepening relationships and repair. Meaning and purpose. And we'll say creativity, service, and learning. And Jean says, should sounds like you've done something wrong. Don't should on yourself or anyone else. Callie says, emotional regulation of the nervous system. Emotional regulation on a regular, constant basis. Thanks for sharing, Callie. So all of these can be ways for us to start to have a positive impact on ourselves. And I think that's another thing that I always try to remember for myself is that making myself better is not a selfish thing. As I improve upon myself, whatever way it is, that is going to be that is going to naturally flow out into everybody else. So maybe we can choose some small realistic focus. So not 10 resolutions, but perhaps a seed that we can plant, something to focus that is specific, it's gentle, it's repeatable. So maybe nervous system care. What would that look like for you? Could be something like a mindful pause for each day. in connection, maybe, let's say connections are our focus. Can we check into our messages each day, and to really check in, and maybe to have time for ourselves? That's something that I've been working on throughout the years, is to not just randomly check my phone and my messages, but to have set times that I do that, because I find that that's helpful in not getting overwhelmed by messages. Maybe our focus is health. Taking a walk after dinner several times a week. Something like this. Just some small realistic focus that can start to move in that direction that we find that's aligning with our values. So, why not make it meditation practice? Practice, maybe commit to ourselves to practice every day for 10 minutes. So the real question, though, is, if I miss a day, can I restart without drama? And, if the answer is no, then maybe the focus needs to be a little bit different. So I think that this is really important, that finding something that you're not going to beat yourself up over when you're not able to do it is going to be quite important. So as we look for that direction as to where we're going to go this year. So is that a good start? Are we ready to start moving into our period of practice? So I'll just give a few before we do. Let's just do a few common traps. And so one of them, the one that I probably fall into as well, is perfectionism. My plan needs to be perfect, right? Makes it a lot harder to get started when we have to find the perfect plan. Comparison to everybody else. Everybody else is ahead. Everybody else is doing better than me. Can make it a lot harder to get started. Or the all or nothing attitude. If I can't do it every single day, it doesn't count. And then, procrastination, one that I've loved to talk about. I'll decide later, and then never ending up deciding. So, afraid to do it wrong. Thanks, Natalie Garr. So, is there self-gentleness, says Jean. Thanks. Is there one word for how you're feeling entering this year? Is there one value you want to live more? So if anything's coming up, just notice what it is, or feel free to share it inside the chat. Let's go ahead and get into our practice. So sit comfortably. Settle into your body. And so settle into your body. That's maybe the very first step of acceptance. This is my body. This is what's here now. Maybe not perfect or ideal, but this is what's showing up here today. The body can have inside of it its sensations. Those sensations can be clues to you as to your emotional state. Your emotional state can give you information as to who you are right now, and maybe guide you on what actions you should or should not take. Often feeling extremely agitated is not the right time to confront someone. So, what does it feel like living inside this body right now? What does this breath feel like? Can you notice how the body moves with each breath? And see if you can keep your attention focused on that feeling of breathing. And I don't like to disturb what may be true for you, but I just want to say what's coming up for me, which is just feels so good to be back here meditating with all of you right now. So thank you for being here. And so I feel your presence. I know I'm not meditating alone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks from me, and maybe thank yourself for showing up as well. So if you can, keep focusing on the feeling of breath, and also notice if moment by moment things are changing. And today, as I meditate, I can notice myself, my body, relaxing, having greater ease, just by focusing on this feeling of breathing. Being present, being here right now. And from time to time, our minds wander. Maybe we aren't focused on the feelings right now. Maybe we're getting lost in thought or wondering, well, what's going to happen next? See if you can let go of those wanderings. Come back to this moment. Come back to how the body feels right now. And sometimes, as we distill our minds, some clarity shows up. Sometimes in that mind wandering, something unexpected shows up. Every once in a while in those wanderings, there's a little hint from your subconscious about the direction which you should be going this year. This direction that you want to go this year. The direction that you know is best for you this year. It doesn't come with the guilt or the external pressure of should. It's the truth that's there. Maybe it shows up for you as you're meditating today. Maybe it doesn't. Just focus on the here and now, and who knows what happens, what shows up as the body and the mind are constantly in flux. So without expectation, not looking for anything, just receiving whatever it is that shows up for you today. And keep it up. You're doing great. Just a few more minutes to go. If you're having trouble focusing, you're finding your mind is wandering more and more as time goes on, feel free to use some assistance, perhaps counting your breaths. And now we'll close our practice with 3 rings of the bell. Thanks for practicing with me. Thanks for being here for yourself and for everybody else here too. How did your practice go today? What did you notice? Did anything come up? Did you notice maybe the true compass? Was there any indication of what's what might be in store as the year goes on? So just curious, what happened for you today? So please feel free to write in the chat when that happens. I'm just going to look at the chat. Sophie says, dare to be in the now. Feel it and enjoy it for what it is. Thanks, Sophie. I guess, Jean, you probably caught my... I think you caught every time I said the word should, which was intentional, in fact. So it's just to see what it's like right? To see what it's like in that meditative space. So cringed every time I heard the word should, which was like, you know, I mean, which is interesting. You know, what did that feel like in your body? Callie, more aware of aches and pains in my body. Thanks, Callie, for sharing. And you know what? That certainly shows up in meditation, and not only for you. Uh, that's it can be very obvious especially when we start to be a bit more still. Jean says, I've worked very hard on removing that word from my vocabulary. Yeah, well, that's it's interesting, right? It's interesting what that, how words can make us feel, and what that, I mean, that's part of mindfulness, is to observe, and I mean, if part of your reaction is to cringe, is to notice that when it comes up. And, I mean, we can eliminate words from our vocabulary, but it doesn't change the fact that people around us are going to use those words. So it's just kind of like looking at that as a full system, as to, perhaps avoiding something can, avoiding it can actually make that thing more charged. So, is it possible to be as honest as possible around that, around that use of a word? And something I always like to say about words is they're just sounds coming out of our mouths. The meaning and the emotional charge that they have are all created by our own minds. So, can you notice that and understand what it is? And I purposely did, we talked about that today, right? Like what's the should compass versus the true compass? Where should comes out of? Urgent, tight, comparative. The true compass feels honest, relieving, even if it can be challenging. And so, just noticing those two different ways. And I totally agree. It's important very much. It's very much important what and how we say things. Our speech definitely has the potential to harm others, and careful use of words is wisdom. That's how we can wisely interact with the world around us and those around us. So it certainly is important, but just understanding that when those words hit our ears, we do have a reaction, but that reaction isn't fixed. That reaction can be changed over time through understanding and practice. J.E. says, what do you recommend when focusing on the breath disrupts your natural breathing rhythm and you end up getting lightheaded? This is something that just takes practice. The thing is that even if you do get lightheaded, you're not gonna. It's not harmful for you. It's not harmful for your health. The best is to keep working at it. Is that this is something that it's taken time. Certainly, it's taken time for me to be able to breathe without my body wanting to take control. I mean, that alone is a very interesting sign for yourself, that when I focus on my breathing, that my body wants to take control. What's there? What is there with me that wants to do that? And I think through practice, we can eventually start to let go. If it is getting you really lightheaded and it's uncomfortable, you can always shift your attention to something else, to some other physical sensation in the body. Like another good sensation is the sensation of your your buttocks sitting on your cushion or chair. So you can just shift for a while until the lightheadedness goes away. But I would encourage you to try the breath. If you have to cycle back and forth from like the feeling of sitting on the cushion back to the breath, just because there's so much information there in the breath. If you can use the breath as an anchor, it really is the best one. Thanks, Callie, for being here. Sybil says, I use the word challenge instead of problem. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here today. Not to get too woo-woo, but choosing words we use is like casting a spell. When it moves from thought to word, it sets it. And it is really interesting how words, how speech changes how you're feeling and how the people are feeling around you. And that's, frankly, that's why I sit on silent retreats. It's why silent retreats exist. It's because of the potential for harm that we have with using words, and interacting with other people through speech. And so that the silence in the silent retreat helps to eliminate that possibility of harming another person with words and harming yourself with words as well. And I think that's really interesting. And I do find silent retreats are extremely helpful and useful for my practice. Thanks, Natalie Gar. Yes, Hawthorne effect, when a behavior is observed, it tends to change the behavior. It's interesting and an interesting one to explore. All right. Thanks for showing up. Thank you, Jean, for your donation. I will be back in 47 hours to talk about now the direction. We've got our compass. We set our compass. We know what direction is where we've discovered the direction our truth lies in. Is it possible for us to start moving in that direction? So let's close our practice with some well wishes to each other and to ourselves. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. May all sentient life, everyone, everywhere, may we all be happy and peaceful. Thanks again. See you next time. Bye-bye.